And it's that time of the week where we look at issues for the family. And joining us on the line to do so is Alan Morris. And Alan has been involved with Alpha Ireland for many years and has been running the Alpha Marriage course for 8 years now and given a number of seminars. Alan, you're very welcome to be back with us this week.
Thank you very much, Anna.
Now, Alan, as I said, you have been involved with Alpha for many years and running the marriage course for many years.
Yes, we're going through an exciting stage here in Dublin in the Alpha, in that we have 17 different churches throughout the south side of Dublin, all coming together to do the Alpha course, and it has been phenomenal how things have moved. Mm-hmm. We started off with prayer, because before everything you have to start with prayer, and we had this United Prayer Initiative, which basically looked at being a more caring community with Christ in the center, mm-hmm. and just really putting prayer first and going into that. Then we started with 2-week media campaign where we had cinemas in Dundrum and Arklow, mm-hmm. and then we had billboards all around the DART stations in different parts of the city on the south side. And then we launched these 17 Alpha courses, and several of them, I think 3 of them, got 60 people into their different places, mm-hmm. and it's just been fantastic. And people are exploring the meaning of life. What's it all about? And just really looking, because there's such a vacuum in so many people's lives when it comes to kind of issues of faith and spirituality, and they just don't know. Mm-hmm. And so these places, there's actually, as I say, 3 different places had around 60 people come to their churches, just explore together about the meaning of life. And so it's been a real encouragement to see these 17 different churches just coming together just to do this Alpha course from October for 10 weeks. Mm-hmm. And, as we work together as different churches, there's such strength in that. And I sometimes think that sometimes we can all stand alone, be little islands in our different churches. But we need to reach out to each other and be part of the body. And by doing that, we will, the rewards for the Lord, if you like, the net is bigger, mm-hmm. and stronger, and more people will come to know the Lord through that. And it's really been an encouragement to see that happening. So hundreds, it must be over 200 and something people are coming to do an Alpha course now at the moment on the south side of Dublin, and it's just been great. And the Alpha course is simply a tool to be used for people, and it just brings you back to the basis of what the Christian faith's about. And it's really been such an encouragement to see people coming along, asking questions, and people not coming to fix them, just like we talked a bit about the marriage, but coming along beside them in their journey and just be with them in it, and not to necessarily always race to fix them or race to kind of, answer every question, but just together, let's look at this together. Mm-hmm. And come alongside, and it's just been phenomenal. So I just wanted to let you know that that's going on just right now. So please, if you could pray for all these 17 different churches. There's one little church that is there's a very small church, and what I would say is, in many ways, maybe they've been kind of in maintenance mode, and they've stepped out in faith. They've gone in outreach, and 3 people came to that church. Mm-hmm. Now that's real mindset change for them, because for many, many years maybe they were just there. They didn't go outside the doors, but they're going outside the doors now. And I want to pray for them and that they will move out into the world. And because our churches have so much to offer, so much. There's the Christian faith has so much to offer people there, mm-hmm. and we've so much to give. And why don't we tell people about it? Yeah. And that's what it's great to see that.
And it is fantastic, as you said, to see Alpha being used as in the process of bringing many people into a personal relationship with Jesus. And of course, extending on from that, then looking at Alpha marriage and just the benefit that can be to a couple who want to go further together in their faith and strengthen that relationship.
Yeah. And, it's funny how, when you kind of strengthen your relationship with God and then your marriage and then your children, it's funny how it just seems to kind of come together. And the closer we get to God, the closer we get maybe to our wives, our husbands, and then to our children. The amount of times during our marriage course, we've seen people who may have gone through difficulties with their children, and how in some ways that's kind of improved because maybe they've got their act more together as a couple. Mm-hmm. And it kind of permeates down through the families and through their different relationships within their extended family as well.
Yeah. And, there is that scripture, where a cord of 3 strands are not easily broken. And somebody described it to me before, Alan, and I thought it was very good, as a triangle with Jesus in the middle and the top point of the triangle, and the husband and wife at the bottom corners or edges. And as they grow closer to Jesus, grow closer to the Lord, they're actually growing closer together.
Exactly. And that's we sometimes don't get that, but that's the thing. We get closer together in ourselves as we get closer to Jesus.
Yeah, I love that demonstration. But of course, today, Alan, we are talking about some of the things that we have to work out in this whole area of growing closer together. We're going to have our difficulties, and today we're talking about the power of forgiveness, saying sorry.
You forgive me
and
for
forgiving.
last week, when I gave out to you, and I was very personal about it. Do you forgive me, Anna?
I forgive you, Alan. Do you forgive me for reacting in such a terribly mean way?
I forgive you, Anna. I forgive you.
Thank you, Alan.
Saying sorry and forgiving, it's such a hard thing. But, going back to how can we build trust to forgive? There's a kind of a circle of trust, openness, intimacy, and healing the hurt. And if there is, what we have to try and do is trying to build that trust to start that circle of good intimacy and openness and the healing hurt. And if we can start with, trusting the person.
Yeah.
Well, what are the reactions to hurt? When you're hurt, Anna, what do? Do you get angry?
No. I inwardly, I think I do. But I get quite, I draw into myself, and I don't really lash out if I'm hurt. I'd have to say I'd be kind of more of a...
You shut down.
Yeah.
Because you can get some of the kind of reactions can be anger, can retaliation. You kind of get back at them. You kind of, you automatically retaliate in hitting back at them in some verbal way or physical way in some cases. You can have fear. You can withdraw into yourselves, and then you can have the guilt of it all. And it's just how we do that. Like, Diane and myself were talking the other day about whether we are, now this is an interesting one, are we a rhino or a hedgehog? Sometimes when we come to confrontation or come to disagreements, we can go head into the situation, full throttle and go kind of, hard into the situation. And instead of, maybe standing back a little bit, or we can be a hedgehog and we can kind of bury ourselves down into ourselves and put up all our spikes. And I think Diane and myself are both a bit of hedgehogs when we come to dealing with conflict. What about yourself, Anna? Which are you?
Oh, I think I would be more like the hedgehog, definitely. I wouldn't think I'm a rhino. Definitely the hedgehog. And I don't think that's good. It's not a good thing to be.
Sometimes it's the worst of the two.
Yeah.
Some people think it's not because it's less confrontational.
Yeah.
But they're both as bad as each other. But sometimes the hedgehog is how to get them out. At least in the rhino, it's out there in some ways.
Yeah. You see, I'd be the rhino in my head. I'm going through all these things in my head, like really going in there. But, in reality, I'm actually the hedgehog. I don't do anything. I just, regress back into myself.
Yeah, we can think, we say, oh, I'm the hedgehog or I'm the rhino. But really, we just explode an odd time. But really, we're actually probably the hedgehog, and we put up all our defense mechanisms.
Yeah. It's funny because I was chatting to somebody, a friend of mine, just this week, and we were talking about just this very topic about our reactions to the hurts and how do we change from being that hedgehog. And, it doesn't go away. You have to deal with things. Some things I know you need to just forgive and put away, little things that aren't, they're not they're going to cause more problems maybe if you go into them because it's not worth making a big deal out of things. But the things that you have to deal with, how do you change from being a hedgehog and actually dealing with stuff?
Well, you can try to bury these things, these hurts and these angers, but they're buried alive, so they're there and they're living in all that. Yeah. And sometimes symptoms come out in different ways when they're buried alive. You can have the physical symptoms, which is kind of maybe disturbed sleep, maybe your appetite's affected,
Yeah.
Maybe you have medical conditions like ulcers, high blood pressure, and pains and things like that. So those are the kind of physical sometimes symptoms of buried hurts and angers. And then you've got the behavioral symptoms, maybe inability to relax. You're always kind of stressed, kind of uptight and things like that. Maybe you have low sexual desire.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you're quick-tempered
Mm-hmm.
and intolerant. Maybe you escape through drugs, alcohol, or pornography.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you escape in work, in your children even, or even in your religious kind of activities of kind of you hide in all that.
Yeah.
A lot of people do that. Then there's the emotional symptoms, the loss of positive emotions. For example, romance, love, joy. You can have low self-esteem, maybe even depression. You just simply shut down.
Mm-hmm.
You just have a fear of confrontation in any form. You just don't want to do any confrontation. But there is a process for healing hurts, and that's like I said last night. There are antidotes, and there are things that can help to to change that cycle that's going on.
Okay.
You can identify the hurt, name the hurt. Sometimes we can just not know what that is. We can actually remember I talked about we sometimes do the person thing rather than the actual thing itself.
Yeah, we were
actually make
talking
it
about this
personal.
yesterday or last week to put the problem outside of both ourselves. It's not you, it's not me.
Exactly.
This is the issue. Put it on the table in front of us. Yeah.
Put it out there, not between us.
Yeah.
So identify the hurt, identify it. So then, you're nearly kind of making that in many ways smaller than just a big general thing. So identify it.
Mm-hmm.
But don't forget, if we've been hurt, we need to say we've been hurt. Or if we have hurt someone, we need to say it. So on both sides, we need to say it gently though, and in love. We need to kind of say, you hurt me when you did this, and so that the other person may not even know it.
Yeah.
They may not know they've even hurt us. So, and try to communicate that. And I know it sounds kind of, I don't like to say that, but try so they can understand. And when they understand, then they can do something about it. But they don't even know it. They may not even know it. And therefore, you're going around feeling hurt and they're totally blissfully ignorant of that going on. They just don't know. So you need to kind of say it gently and lovingly to them that they did hurt you.
Yeah, that's a good point, Alan, because, sometimes we assume that our husband or wife or partners, they automatically know what we're feeling. But of course they don't, because they can't read what's going on in our head. So if they've slighted us in some way and we've taken offence, as you said, they may be completely oblivious to that.
I remember when we got married first, Diane myself, Diane, when she kind of was hurt or something like that, she started throwing around the saucepan. She was making a lot of noise and things like that, thinking that I would know what she was thinking.
Yeah.
And that was why she kind of tried to let me know. And I was blissfully ignorant. So eventually she had to learn, she had to say it to me, that I'd hurt her, and when then I understood, and then I was able to kind of be with her in that and trying to, try to deal with it then,
Yeah.
So, I needed to apologize those times. I needed to say, I'm sorry, dear, and then when that happens, things move on then, So I have to take responsibility for it. I was terrible, and this is one thing, I was terrible when we got first. I would actually legitimize all my mistakes. I would have a logical stepping stone to why I did this. But the simple thing was, I made a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to learn, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. Rather than trying to justify it all, try to put add-ons onto everything, try to excuse it. And I had to learn that I mustn't excuse it. I made a mistake.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we can be a bit like that though, can't we, Alan? We can legitimise our reasons for doing things. We know exactly why we've done this. We might be wrong in what we've done, but we know, well, it was, if you hadn't done that, or, if you hadn't left that out, or if you hadn't forgotten this, I wouldn't have done that, even though we're wrong. Whereas we can be very critical of others, very quick to point out their our partner's mistakes, our husband's mistakes, and very, very fast to pick up on those mistakes that they've made.
Yeah, sometimes we need to change things around from your faults and my needs to your needs and my faults. Change that round in our mind, because sometimes we can actually just be, looking inward at us and, and their faults, and not looking at maybe our faults, like the plank and the bit of wood and things like that in our own eyes, and look at the other way around and shift that in a different way. So we need to apologize and say and ask for forgiveness. The thing sometimes happens when you kind of put it out there, please forgive me, right?
Yeah.
What does the other person do? There's great control in saying, I'm going to hold on to that now. I've got him by whatever, you know what I mean? And not forgive him, because there's great control in that. But yet, if by saying, I forgive you, those words are such a powerful thing. I forgive you. You may not deserve it. I forgive you. And that forgiveness, it really does maybe dissolve the issue, and you can move on.
Mm-hmm. So what is and is not forgiveness, Alan?
Well, forgiveness is not demanding a person change before we forgive them.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Demanding a person changes before we forgive them. Or pretending it doesn't matter and trying to forget about it.
Yeah.
Pretending it doesn't matter and trying to forget about it.
Yeah, I think that's a pitfall that many of us fall into in the whole area of apologizing and forgiveness. Yeah.
And then thinking time alone will heal the hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Time will heal the hurt. As I said, like, a lot of these things are buried alive, so they kind of reoccur. They come back all the time, and they're alive, buried. They're not dead, buried. They're alive. So those are things that, forgiveness is not. But forgiveness is facing the wrong done to us, recognizing the emotions inside, releasing the other person to God's hands, leaving the consequence to Him. Now that can be a hard thing.
Yeah.
Releasing the other person into God's hands, leaving the consequence to God. Choosing not to hold it against our husband or wife. If we do not forgive, we'll be the one imprisoned by the bitterness, resentment, and anger. The more and more I look at forgiveness, the more it's about the person who is forgiving than the other person that needs the forgiveness.
Yeah.
Because if we hold on to that, and it just becomes bitter on us, becomes resentful and anger. There's so many people that in the world that have seen the change. Look, go to the Bible and look where Paul, he had persecuted the Christians and things like that. Like, he needed forgiveness. He needed to kind of let go, of the past as well, and move on. And sometimes we can be imprisoned by all the bitterness that kind of goes on in our lives. There's I don't know whether you know the story of Corrie ten Boom.
Yep.
She was in a Nazi prison camp, and basically her sister died in that concentration camp. And after the war, she met one of the officers that led to her sister's death in the thing. And he came over to her and offered his hands to her and said that he'd become a Christian and things like that. Now, how would any of us react if we knew that a person in front of us had led to the death of our sister? Could we forgive them? But she did, and she put out her hand with sheer will. She put out her hand and shook his hand. We have also here in the North situation, there was Gordon Wilson, who my dad knew, and his daughter was killed by the IRA.
Mm-hmm.
And he forgave them and openly forgave the IRA people for killing his daughter. Because, forgiveness is about it doesn't change the situation, but it changes how we look on the situation. In South Africa, there was Nelson Mandela, and I found this one really interesting in that when they were trying to get over all the past hurts, they then agreed that if anyone got up publicly and declared what they'd done wrong, that they would be forgiven. Because what Nelson Mandela said, our country needs healing, not justice. And that some things just, they couldn't get justice. There was so much of it. So how did they deal with that? How do they needed healing. So sometimes we need kind of healing, maybe more than justice sometimes. Because forgiveness is a process. We often need to keep forgiving. Keep forgiving for the same hurt, sometimes on a daily basis. But don't forget, God forgave us first, and He freely forgave us. And therefore, we must forgive others freely. Because in Ephesians 4:31-32, it says, "Get rid of all bitterness, rage, and anger. Be kind and compassionate to one another. Forgive each other, just as Christ, God, forgave you."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know. How do we start again? How do we start again? How do we... I have friends who kind of keep records of all the hurts of their relationship, you know, and they just kind of nearly, I think, just that's their whole focus, is all the different hurts. And how do they move on? I don't know. Maybe they need to tear it all up. Maybe they need to tear up all those sheets and just move on and forgive each other. Now, they may not reconcile in their relationship, I don't know. But they kind of, the forgiveness and the bitterness is just eating them up. And how they release that, how they actually forgive each other.
Mm-hmm. Because it is important for us to be able to forgive, to begin that process of healing within the relationship.
Yeah, I sometimes say, like, you know, sometimes forgiveness is a little bit about the sting by a bee.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you get stung by the bee, you take out the core of it, the thing that's just gone into you, but there's still the lump there, and it still does take time for that lump to come down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There was, on part of our DVD, Rob Parsons talks about a couple who came to him, and he said that he'd had an affair, and that he took off his wedding band and gave it to his wife and said, "When you trust me, give it back to me." So for 2 years, he hadn't worn the ring, and that night she gave him back his ring, and he was showing Rob Parsons that ring. And Rob Parsons, she said, he was saying, she kind of trusts me again. And Rob Parsons is saying she's hoping and trusting that you know, that she's living in hope for that as well, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, if any of us had an affair, you know, how would our partners react to that? It's a huge one there.
It is a huge one. And there are couples today who are facing very big issues within their relationship. But there is hope, as you just said.
There is hope. There is hope. Like, you know, I've seen marriages that everything's looked perfect except for one or two little things, and they're divorced now. And I've seen other marriages that had huge issues like physical abuse and everything else that were on, and they're still together. Mm-hmm. So what is the actual thing? What keeps them together and what doesn't? Well, love is a choice. Do they both still want to work at it? Do they both still want it to do they still love each other? Is there still that connection? Is it totally broken and not, never get back together? Those are the hard questions, the core questions of these relationships. Sometimes commitment is a kind of a dirty word. And marriages go through tough times because marriage is for a long time. And, when you go through tough times, what do we do with that? Do we release it and say, we're going, the grass is greener over the hill? Because, the grass still needs mowing over that hill, still needs work. And sometimes when we leave and divorce people and go on to another marriages, we come to the same situation again. Yeah. And we just have to, we have to work at it. And the funny thing, the harder you work at your marriage, the better it is. Mm-hmm. And that's why I simply do the marriage course, because it's about service in your marriage. It's about strengthening your marriage. It's about investing in it. It's about giving it time. How do you spell love? Time, Time. Giving time to the one you love. We invest so much in our maybe work, in our financial stuff and all that sort of thing. But what about our relationship? One of our top relationships is our marriage, and we would just wing it. Mm-hmm. There are tools out there to make it better, stronger, more connected, and we don't do anything about it. And yet we can, because marriage does not have to be average. It can be fantastic. Doesn't mean it's going to be perfect, because mine's not. And no marriage is absolutely perfect, because we're all in it and none of us are perfect. So, but yet we can work at it. We can grow stronger with each other. We can walk in tune with each other, like the three-legged race I talked about, just walking together. And isn't it beautiful when you're in tune with each other on that journey of life together? And, it's just fantastic. But we have to work at it. We simply have to work at it.
That really is what we're trying to do with these series of shows. And of course, next week, we are out of time for today, but next week we're going to be talking about the impact of family, our families from the past, what we bring into our relationship, and of course the impact of the family in our present circumstances. So it is, as you said, Alan, but working things out, and there's a lot that we need to consider, and we still have a couple of weeks to go, so there is a lot more that we're going to be covering.
Yeah, that's right. We're always work in progress, and
we are.
Pray for a learning spirit for us all.
Yeah. And again, Alan, in regards to Alpha, if people do want to know more, I know they can check out the website, and the details are?
Yeah, alphacourse.ie, or we have Alpha Ireland on Facebook, and you connect onto Facebook there and you see all the different things that are going on all over Ireland. But I particularly think of, at the moment, just doing this initiative on the south side of Dublin. And if anywhere down in Cork want to get together and use Alpha as a tool to come together with churches in your area, go for it, because, the net gets bigger. And when the net gets bigger, there's a greater opportunity for saving souls.
Yeah. So, Alan, there's plenty to think about there. Alan, thank you so much for being with us today, and we look forward to having you back with us again next Friday.